It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's Jill on Money, and I'm Jill Schlesinger, that is. Hope everyone's doing well, enjoying your spring. I know I am. A lot of travel for the book. A lot of stuff going on. And, you know, I've been getting some really good questions from you guys. Some of this has a lot to do with the tax season, of course. But I think in general, I wonder if, like, we went and ranked our very top questions. Is our number one question mark basically Roth versus traditional? I think so, too. Just get so many questions about that. And we love the Roth IRA, and mostly because that money's already been taxed. There's nothing better than that, man. There are certain cases where the Roth doesn't quite work, and for those folks who don't know what a backdoor Roth is, that's if you make too much money to make a Roth contribution. There's a way to put money into what's called a non-deductible IRA. And then you can quickly convert it into a Roth. And poof, you've got that money in there. The only caveat is that if you have old traditional IRA assets that are out and about, it doesn't work quite so well because there's a little hitch in the plan about the way you can calculate the conversion and what happens. So one idea that someone gave me, which I think is really terrific, is that for someone, let's say that maybe you move from one job to another, okay? And let's say I went from ABC Corporation to XYZ Corporation. And in the middle, said, I don't want to move my old retirement account into my new retirement account. I put it into an IRA rollover account. It's essentially an IRA. Now, what you can do is, because you don't want to necessarily have that money floating out and about, you can roll that money into your existing 401k plan and then start doing the backdoor Roth. The thing is that if you leave that old retirement account, then that's out there as an IRA, again, you cannot do the backdoor Roth as efficiently. So there are some ideas. If you have a question about your traditional versus Roth, then give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. If you're trying to figure out whether a conversion makes sense to you or not, let us know. Would love to help you out. So just, again, send us an email. We're really doing well, though. Mark, we are now feeling a little bit more in control of our email inbox, or things still piling up? Oh, brother. He says that me being on vacation. What about all these hours I'm putting in? Doesn't that count for anything? These extra hours? Okay. John from North Carolina is on the line. And John, welcome to Jill on Money. What can we do for you?
Hey, Jill. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Always enjoy your show. Thank you so much. So last time I called, we had a conversation about my wife just started working full-time again, making a great deal of money, which was a nice problem to have. And my question at the time is, what do we do with the money? Do we put it in retirement? I think your comment at that time was your retirement's looking fine because we're both fully funding our 401ks. And now we are at I'll say kind of a dilemma, a sticking point, which is prompting my question, and that is how to pay for college. We have $42,000 in a 529 fund, roughly $1,000 in another just cash fund designated for college. And we engaged a financial planner, a paid financial planner, and one of the products, or I guess actually the product that they offered to us or suggested to us to pay for college is assuming that with our income, total gross roughly around $320 a year, we're not going to qualify for need-based aid. My daughter is a junior. My son is a sophomore. My daughter of course, wants to go to a school like Duke, much to the difference of the conversation that I just had with Mark about the basketball tournament. She does want to go to Duke. And I've told her, you're not wearing that sweatshirt into the house.
I like that. I like that you really drew the line, and you really are very smart about that. Okay, continue.
So the solution that they have come back with is a product that's called an equity indexed universal life policy. And for as it is explained to us, it essentially creates an arbitrage situation. With this particular policy, the guaranteed return is from 0 to 12%, depending on the market. So if the market goes down, you don't lose. If it goes up 28%, you cap at 12%, but on average over the past 20 years, it's returned around 6%. That being the case, we start shifting all of our college savings as well as a large part, well, actually all of the unmatched 401k contributions to this equity indexed universal life policy. And over the next 2 or 3 years, that creates a significant cash value that we could borrow against to pay loans, presumably government loans that we would use to pay for college. The difference being a government loan at 3%, we're guaranteed, quote unquote, guaranteed equity in the fund at 6%. So we are arbitraging against the loan interest rate, the government student loan interest rate, and the return in the cash value of the fund. We essentially, over the next, I guess, if they're both in college for 4 years, so that would be, oh my gosh, what's my math? Is that 7 years of college in a row, I think? Mm-hmm. So over paying that amount into over the 7 years, we would develop quite a cash value with a policy, and then when the kids are done with college, we would continue to pay off the loan that we took against the policy, and then when we retire, I think they ran the numbers out to 11, 12 years, something like that, then we would be able to use that income as tax-free retirement income.
Okay. And you know what? I got to interrupt you because I feel like you've just gotten a job selling this policy. You've done a phenomenal job. I'm going to interrupt you for a minute, and you win the prize. Remember that line in, what was that movie? Glengarry Glen Ross. It was a play also, and there's a bunch of sales guys. And the first prize in the sales contest, a set of steak knives. The second prize is the door. Okay, just kidding. John, do we have to go to a break, Mark, quick? Okay. So John did a fantastic job of explaining what was pitched to him in this policy, which is an insurance product, which you will go through when we come back. Because when we come back, we are going to go through the pros and cons of indexed universal life insurance and equity index universal life insurance policies and what they're all about and whether you should use those to pay for college. So stay tuned. We are returning to John in North Carolina when we return. It's Jill on Money, and we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money, and if you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. And here is the good news. The good news is that John from North Carolina called in and basically did all of the work for me, which is fantastic, about an equity index universal life, even using the word arbitrage, which is very fancy of you. So just remind me, though, the kids, how old are the kids right now?
My daughter is a junior in high school, and my son is a sophomore. And
they're both going to college. One wants to go to Duke, but they're both going to college. The 529 plan that you have currently with the $42,000 in it, Is that in the North Carolina plan, the one that has cfnc.org?
No.
Where is it?
It's with Voya, I believe.
Oh man, why'd you do that? Is this what the guy sold you, or did you have that?
This happened many years ago.
Okay.
Before we started listening to Jill.
All right. Okay. So, first of all, the North Carolina plan, the 529 plan, is a very good plan. All right. I want you to hear that. This is CF. I just went on during the break. CFNC.org. Okay. College Foundation of North Carolina. CFNC.org. And how do I know it's a good plan? Because the plan uses very cheap funds. So it makes the use, so the 529 plan itself is run very professionally and efficiently because they're using Vanguard funds. And you've got to, if you went through and you looked at all the different accounts, it kind of looks like almost as if you were looking at a 401k plan that was offered through Vanguard. You have, an aggressive portfolio. You also have a growth portfolio. You have a balanced portfolio, but you can go through and actually pick your own investments. And so, besides, you could just put a stock market index and a bond market index. You could kind of pick your own. And so I think that what's really important about this is that you have an extremely efficient plan available. So first things first, I know that I guess that the answer is on the kids are going to need this money sooner rather than later. But you could still use some of the money right now to invest. And the other piece of this is, we're only talking about a couple of years, right? Because then you have to start actually paying tuition bills. So I don't really see the efficacy of using the equity index policy. I think that that's baloney about this whole arbitrage thing. The reason I think that's baloney is that, you're using retirement plans right now. You now have to pay for college. You really are talking about like literally 3 years before you have to start writing tuition checks. So, if that's the case, then why am I getting involved in this whole equity policy that has fees, that is going to tie me down? And, if college, let's just say that oldest child is a remarkable basketball player and she's going to Duke. Well, I don't know if it's a boy or girl. But anyway, let's just say that the kid's going to Duke. You got a scholarship. You don't need the money. And then all of a sudden that, you find that you have extra money left over and you can just cover all of college and you've got tons of cash flow later and then you can start investing. I think that that's one thing. But again, we have a sophomore and a junior. So in 2 years, you're going to be paying money for these kids. You're not that extra. What do you have an extra a month? A couple $1,000?
Yes. Yep. 2,000.
Well, you're gonna need that to pay for their school. So I think so let's back up. I think that the problem with this game plan is that at $2,000 a month, I don't see why you would be, and it's only for a couple of years, why you wouldn't use the most efficient way to invest possible for education, which is a 529 plan, because the money that you put in grows without any tax. And yeah, you could do this whole hokey pokey of buying a universal life policy, putting money in, borrowing against it, but it's like fee on top of fees. So this policy is only tax-free if you've borrowed the money out. The cost, then you're paying for insurance you don't need, which has a fee associated with it. So, you already have a tax-free plan. It's called a 529 plan. And in terms of retirement, this is a very expensive way to create a retirement fund. And I don't think that this is going to be worth it for you. So here's my question to you. Financial advisor, how are you paying that financial advisor?
We paid a fee.
And like an asset under management fee, or?
No, just a one-time cost, like $1,000 or so. And
and does this guy get a commission on this policy if he sells it to you?
I did not ask. My assumption is yes, because everybody does, but I don't know the answer to that.
That's probably yes. So I just don't think this is the right advice for you. I don't. I think this is a very, I think this is a cumbersome plan to do something that is actually quite easy right in front of you. I mean, life insurance agents are just notorious for saying, like, you can use this for college, you can borrow for it, you can retire. And they never tell you about all the downsides. Like, hey, you actually have a risk in this, which is not just market risk, because, of course, everyone has market risk either way, but that your costs are pretty significant and that your premium goes up. The amount of money that you're paying for the death benefit rises and can often exceed your cash accumulation account. And all of this can happen when you're sort of like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why am I paying a premium expense charge, administrative expenses, insurance costs, fees, commissions, and surrender charges? Why am I doing this when I have an option in my lap that is seamless? It's perfect. Use the North Carolina CFNC.org. Use that plan. And I would even go so far as to say that the old 529 plan, the Voya one, I would call up CFNC.org and see if you can just transfer that money in and use that, because it's going to be cheaper than the Voya plan. And then use that money and use those accounts for the kids and put the money in when you can. Then you can stop putting money into those funds and pay for tuition out of pocket. It's fine if you can do that. It's great. And then use the money, drain the money out of the 529, pay for the college costs. And at the end of those years where, you're going to have a big bill because these kids are in school at the same time. At the end of that period of time, how old are you?
56.
All right. So you're going to be in your early 60s when the kids are done, and now you're going to have all that extra cash flow, and all you're going to do is you're just going to have a regular investment account. That's it. You don't have to make any, again, there's no reason to jump through the hoop of doing this equity index annuity because you don't need it. It's really mind-blowing to me that was the recommendation because, again, you have a wonderful solution to your college funding problem. It's right in front of you. The more complicated should raise bigger warning signs for you. The least complicated is usually the right answer for you. So the least complicated answer is, hey, I live in North Carolina. What does the 529 plan look like for me? Hey, this 529 plan, it's all Vanguard funds. It's pretty cheap. This is fantastic. So isn't this wonderful? Why wouldn't I use this? There's just no reason to mess around with this. And so then if you've got that done and you're only going to put money in for a certain period of time, and then what you're going to end up doing is pay for college. And when you're done paying for college, you're going to use the money that you were paying for college and you're going to put it in a non-retirement investment account. That's it. Simple, cheap, efficient. Go forth and prosper, John. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is our email address. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money, and we are answering some of your email questions. If you've got a financial, investment, education funding, career question, anything that's going on, shoot us a note. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That's what Mas did. And so I'd like to know if we can afford to retire comfortably at the age of 62. I'm 58. My husband is 54. I make about $32,000 a year. He makes $70,000, but also has a military pension of $32,000. So they make about $134,000 a year. They own their home with a mortgage of $375,000. That's a fat mortgage. $600,000 $35,000 home. IRAs, 401ks, about $600,000, $25,000 in investments, $30,000 in emergency reserve fund, paying for daughter's college. I'm contributing 10% to my 401k and $7,000 to my Roth IRA. No other debt. After we get rid of the daughter's education, saves about $1,500 a month. I want to build up our savings. We will need about $8,000 a month net minus his pension of $2,300, and means we need $5,500 per month. Well, what about Social Security? Okay. You need more money. So, I don't know. Listen, I don't think you're going to retire at 62. I just don't see this. You need $5,500 a month. If you wanted to collect at 67, that means you need 5 years at $5,500 a month. No, you're not going to do it. There's no way. For every $1 million you save, think about this, especially if it's in an IRA, you got to pull the money out. Like, even if you could get 3%, if you get $30,000 out, you got to pay tax on it, right? So you really got like $25,000. And that's not enough for you. So no, you can't do it. You got to keep working. And I would be thinking about working till your full retirement age. And I think that that's going to be your best bet. And don't drive yourself crazy. Unless I'm missing something here. If you want to sell your house and downsize and get a couple $100,000 out of that, maybe. Okay. Julie writes, I love these long subject lines. Should I switch part of my TSP funds to enhanced fixed index annuity? And is it a good idea to pay off car with funds from my retired husband's 401k? Mark's nodding no. Okay. Julie's 60. She's a federal employee. She's going to retire in the next few years. So she's currently contributing 14% of her income to her thrift savings plan. And thrift savings plan, she's got 70% going to the G fund, 30% to the F fund with a return about 2.25%. So no stocks at all. She earns about $112,000 a year. She'll have 38 years of service when she retires. Oof. Should she go to an annuity? No, don't go to an annuity. Don't go to an annuity. Don't go to an annuity. If anything, I would put look, you're not going to draw all this money at once. I don't know if you need 100% of your money in safe stuff. I might even put 20% in the stock fund over time. But if you don't want that, but no annuity. Second question is, do I pay off one outstanding debt, $11,000 on a car? Okay. So we have $15,000 in cash that we use for emergencies. I don't want to deplete that to pay off the car. So should they use his retirement account to do that? No. Just pay off the car a little bit at a time. Own a home, $525,000. Got $140,000 of equity. And the one expense, she writes, is my horses. Not one, but more than one. $1,000 a month. I don't know what to say to these sometimes, but thank you, Julie. And thank you for your note. No, don't use a fixed annuity. Don't use your husband's 401k to pay off the car. As the answers to your questions. Okay? Okay, Rena was offered a cash-out refinance on her mortgage to pay off credit card debt. Is it a good idea? I don't know how much credit card debt you have. Just remember, if you are refinancing now under the new tax code and you use that to pay off debt, you can't deduct the interest. So it depends on the interest you're paying, and it depends on how quickly you would pay off the credit card debt otherwise. Maybe you should go check out an installment loan. You can check that out. See what's Marcus, podcast sponsor, Marcus, has installment loans. Maybe that's a better idea than refi. Check it out. Gerald turned 54. He's making 54 grand. He can soon, his new job, he's going to be able to contribute to his 401k. They've got a regular and a Roth. And then he says beginning in 2020, he's going to be collecting a defined benefit traditional pension from his previous employer. He wants to put more money away. Should I use the pension as current income and max out the 401k contribution or stash it away? You know what I would do? I would use the Roth. I would use the Roth 401k at the new job, especially since you can do it. You know, it sounds like you're going to be in a higher tax bracket later because of that pension income. So I think that I would do that in the Roth, and I don't think I would go crazy. I would not max out a traditional 401k right now. I wouldn't even max out the Roth. I would do what you need to do, and yeah, you can live a little bit on that money, but it shouldn't be an either or. Make sure you don't get so close to the edge that you're putting everything away. Use the Roth. See how it goes. You can live on the rest, then a little bit, even if you don't plan on spending it. You could live on it and use the money and put it into a Roth, but you still have to have some liquidity. You got to be able to pay your bills. Okay? So don't go crazy with it. It's Jill on Money. If you got a financial question, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@JillOnMoney.com. And we're plowing through lots of emails. Here's one from Becky, who listens to us on WHAS in Louisville. I have to say it the right way. She wants to know about long-term care insurance. And so here's some of the stats, just so you know. Some of the stats include this one that always blows my mind, which is that you're probably going to need some form of long-term care in your lifetime. But most of the care you pay out of pocket. And that, I know that is just a drag, but that's the case. Remember, Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicaid covers, but you have to impoverish yourself. So you have to qualify for your state's guidelines, something, I don't know, $2,000 for an individual, and then you get an exemption for your home. So here's what else you can know. It'll cost you a bunch of money. It really will. Assisted care facilities are expensive, and long-term care insurance is also expensive. And what I've always been worried about with long-term care has somewhat come to fruition, which is a lot of companies are raising premiums because they mispriced these policies in the first place. So Genworth received approval from state regulators in the last couple of years to raise costs. So did Mass Mutual. So that's a bummer. These are big insurance providers. Also a big insurance provider is Northwestern Mutual. They do long-term care. So I guess the answer to this question is it really does depend. I agree with you that there is some hope that people who self-insure are going to be better off than going through this process. But there are also some new insurance products. I'm just starting to go through this, and I want to get an expert on who knows a lot about this. There are some insurance products that wrap a long-term care layer on top of it, or a rider. Some of those seem to be interesting. But self-insuring really works if you've got more than $2 million. You roll the dice if you've got, maybe less than $500,000. The people who are married in between are the ones that are a little bit more at risk. So, Becky, I'll have Mark send you some info, some long-term care articles that we've written. Okay? We'll check that out. Nicole wants to know what factors to consider whether to sell or keep an individual stock or mutual fund. Well, I mean, it goes back to a different question, which is, why are you investing? What is the goal? Are you investing for a very long period of time in the future? In which case, I don't know if I'd be selling so much of this stuff. I start with a game plan, a financial plan, and then I figure out the asset allocation to fulfill the goals of my plan. And so I only think about selling if we're really looking at something like there's a reason you have to sell. But just selling willy-nilly, I'm not that kind of investor myself. So that's that. I need more information. I'm such a pain, right? Okay. Mary was working with a financial planner for 25 years. Mary's turning 65. She had a meeting to discuss what comes next, and he dropped dead. Oy. I'm looking for a planner in Nashville. Know anybody? I've got about $3 million in assets. Half real estate, half stocks and bonds. I don't know anyone in Nashville specifically, but Mark, you maybe can send Mary some names of folks if she cares to talk on the phone, or maybe we'll send her over to NAPFA, NAPFA.org, or maybe just letsmakeaplan.org, which is the CFP website. I want to check that out. It's so hard. Just your luck. The guy died. Just kidding. Question. This is Linda. I've got a small LLC with a rental on which I have a bid. I want to buy another rental. Can you go over the pros and cons of a 1031 tax exchange? No, I can't, because it's great because you basically defer any tax that's due, but you've got to talk to somebody who handles these transactions. Usually ask a real estate person who's into of these like-kind transfers. Make sure you get the good advice. I know there are very specific rules about timing. And so the best news is you don't have to pay any tax that's due. You defer it to the next property. That's the upside. The downside is that people often make mistakes with it, and maybe it's better to just pay the tax and move on. Tax rates are pretty low right now. So those are your kind of I would say the best advice I can give you. Okay? Very good. All right. So you are listening to Jill on Money. And if you've got a financial question, we always love to hear from you. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. And the other piece of this is that you can always send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. You can also go to the website, jillonmoney.com. It's all about Jill on Money. Okay? All good. I hope that you are all geared up here, baby. Life's good here. Got one more segment to go. It's Jill on Money. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank studios in New York. And before we close out the hour, we've got a message here from Christopher, who's going to be 60. And he said his wife passed away 4 years ago, and he can take her Social Security and let his grow. And he says, I have one child that will need health insurance for 3 more years unless she gets a good job when she graduates. I've got $1.7 million in real estate. No. Yeah. Real estate. Wow. Rental property owns free and clear. Rents are $4,000 a month. Holy smokes. He also has $800,000 in retirement and a $350,000 home that's probably too large for him. He owns it free and clear. All right. So a couple of issues. So yes, take her Social Security and let yours grow. That does make sense. You're going to have to pay for the kids' health insurance. So there's that. But here's the real question. Oh, I hate this question, but I'm going to say it out loud. I just got stuck with my oldest daughter's student loan, a federal loan. She owes $138,000, which she refuses to pay. She refuses to pay. $1,050 a month. She works, and I think she can afford it. Is there anything I can do about this because I co-signed like a fool? I'll tell you what. This is what you're going to do. You are going to pay this off because you did co-sign like a fool. Well, you did it. And you are going to make an adjustment in your estate documents. And you are going to hose her for the $138,000. Okay? And you're going to say the $138 plus the interest. You're going to make sure you calculate exactly what you spend on this. All right? And then when that will is read, it's going to be fantastic because your other kid is going to get that money. And that's how you're going to make this right. You're going to essentially make sure that in the settlement of your estate, she pays this god darn loan. Bam! I like that idea. All right. Send me more of your family issues. I'm ready to call you from the grave. That's right, my friends. It's Jill on Money. You've got a financial question we want to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Stay tuned. We've got one more hour of the program. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome. It's hour number 2 of the Jill on Money show. We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance, all different kinds of insurance. Go to policygenius.com. Check it out. Okay? Good. All right. We have still piles and piles and piles of emails. It's just never ending. I love you guys for writing. But, man, I'm going to have just like an extra show a week. Just have to like drop this into our podcast feed. You don't have our podcast? You don't know what to, my mother's boyfriend, who is not my dad, my mother's boyfriend's like, what is a podcast? I said, it's just a way to listen to audio content on your phone or your iPad. He's like, oh, okay. On-demand listening, whenever you want. Do you want to listen to our podcast? It's coincidentally called Jill on Money. You can download that podcast and subscribe on Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. It's just not that hard. Get one of the kids to help you out. All right, Mike writes, he's got $1 million in his 401k, and here's how it's allocated. 43% U.S. stock, 2% foreign stock, 34% bonds, 21% short term. My wife and I also have Roth IRAs, $270,000 gives the allocation. He's also got $66,000 in health savings accounts, entirely invested in domestic stocks, no withdrawals from these accounts, and we max them out each year, $173,000 in other savings. If we retire at age 65, we are looking to pull a combined $60,000 from our 401k and IRA accounts. I'm projecting and hopeful that I will have around $1.7 to $2 million in these accounts. Not bad. If you got $2 million, I think that $60,000 will do it. That should be okay. I have a pension plan that he's going to be able to draw at age 66. Social Security at 67. What I struggle with is my investment allocation within my 401k and our IRAs as we get closer to retirement. My fear is that we will see another bear market like in 2008 where we lost almost 40% in these accounts. I know I have many years to invest. I'm looking for wise allocation and leading into retirement. Well, look, the biggest chunk of your money is in your 401k, and you only have 45% in stocks. That seems okay. And in your Roth, it's funny. So in your Roth, you've got about 50% plus some commodities and real estate and alternative stuff and bonds. So I don't mind that. The HSA, I guess that I would probably have not 100% in stocks, because what if you actually have a healthcare issue that you need the money? You seem fine. You don't have that much in stocks. I mean, I guess you could trim the domestic stock a little bit as you get closer to retirement, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think you're in bad shape. I'm not guessing that we're going to encounter a fall off like we did. So Mike's 60 years old. And I guess that to think that you're going to have another once in a generation crash, I guess it's possible. And maybe you go down to 35% in stocks. I don't know, but you're going to need that money to grow. You're a little bit, you're somewhat close in terms of where, what you're looking at in terms of the safe withdrawal rate. So I guess the way that you could potentially be a little bit more conservative is you could maybe scale back the amount of money you have in the stock market and then potentially work for a couple more years. Instead of retiring at 65, maybe you say, I'm not going to retire until I'm age 67. And then I'll have even more money saved up. I don't think that you should worry as much as you are worrying. I'm sure that 2008 crisis really did freak everybody out. I get it. But I think that you've got plenty of money in savings. You have the pension that will be coming. You'll have your Social Security benefits. Honestly, for everyone listening, when you're really worried about what could happen, the best way to prevent something really bad from happening is simply to actually work longer. Think about that. Jeffrey wants to know if he can make an IRA contribution. Neither he nor his wife were employed in 2018. No, that's it. I get it. He's sort of saying that he was granted non-qualified stock options, which he cashed in, and he said the income was reported on a W-2 along with holding for taxes. Can I use the income as a basis for making a 2018 contribution? I don't think you can. I don't think that is possible, even though I get what you're saying. This was part of your compensation. But they're non-qualified stock options. I don't know. You're going to have to ask a tax preparer that question. I don't think you're going to be able to, but if you can, that would be awesome. For sure. Okay. David's wants to know, after listening to your recent show about the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early, I've been doing some extensive research and I've reached a quandary. Is it time for me to slow or stop contributing to my Roth and instead focus on building up a taxable index fund in pursuit of earlier financial independence? I'm 35 years old, career Army, 3 to 4 years before military retirement. I earn about $100,000 a year. I'm married and my spouse, age 33, does not work. We are currently stationed in Japan. We got a couple kids. They each have 529 accounts. They've got about $190,000 in Roth IRAs. Military pension should be about $3,000 a month when he retires in 2022. Most of the projections I run for the future value of our Roth show that if we stop contributing now, we could have about $1.3 million when I turn 60. Should I slow down, stop contributing to the Roth now, and instead put that money into a taxable account with low-cost index funds? This would be able to generate additional income, allow us greater flexibility and financial independence prior to age 59 and a half. 10 grand in an emergency reserve fund right now. We plan to sell rental property. We'll likely we'll net $90,000 to $100,000. Set aside an additional $10K to the emergency fund. A little bit of seed money for a side hustle. Set 20 to 40 grand for modifications to a future house, and 40 grand to more fully fund our 529 plans. We're going to have a new house. What do you think, Mark? You want him to skip the Roth IRA? I think so, too. Mark says maybe split it. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking take some of the money and put it into a non-retirement account or a non-qualified account, and the other put into the Roth IRAs. I have a feeling you're not going to just stop. I have a feeling you're going to keep working. That's my sense. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back, and we are here to help you out. Whatever your financial question may be, the easiest way to get in touch with us is to send us an email, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com, or what else can you do? You can just go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, click on the Contact Us button. Hey, Mark, do we still have the phone number? Or should I just get that out of all scripts? We're not using it. Why don't we disconnect it? Mark used to get rambling voicemails from people who were drunk, who would listen to the show in the evening. And I don't know when they were. I don't know what they were doing. There were a couple of markets where we were on late at night in the beginning. And he would get these funny, crazy voicemails. But anyway, we like the electronic version. No phone anymore. All right. What else can I tell you? We got just so much stuff going on here in Jill on Money World. Specifically, I'm still hawking my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. If you would like to purchase a copy, you can do so at the website, JillOnMoney.com. Click on the book link, and you can buy it anywhere you want. Or stroll into your local independent bookstore. That would be good. All right, let's get to some questions. Let's see, where are we? I just want to see where we are. Oh, man, we're still doing January? Oh, all right. I'm going to try to get through this. This is about a 1031 exchange. I'll explain that in a second. It's called a like-kind exchange for real estate. But the question is that Jim is selling a rental home that he has had for 24 years, 100 grand. And he would like to do a 1031 exchange to delay paying the taxes that are due. So he would have two forms of taxes that are usually due when you sell rental property. One is just capital gains for any appreciation. And the other part of it is that for people who have been using the depreciation on their tax returns, they've got to recapture whatever has been depreciated. Okay? So the question is, from Jim, can I do a 1031 exchange if I'm building a new rental property? In other words, if he's building it. Now, I went to the IRS website, okay? And like-kind exchanges this is the definition. It's when you exchange real property used for business or held as an investment solely for other business or investment property that is the same type or, quote, like kind. So I think that may be the key here, because I don't think you could do it if it's a new property. I'm not sure about this, but it's important that you really be very precise. So I think that so what happens here, just so you know, is that when you do this, when you sell something and then push it into another property that has essentially the same type or like kind, you don't have to pay any of the tax that's due. You shove it into the new property. And it says under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, this now applies only to exchanges of real property and not to exchanges of personal or intangible property. So I think you better check this out, and I would check it out with an attorney, a tax attorney, or with a CPA. And it says something, properties are of like kind if they're of the same nature or character, even if they differ in grade or quality. See, I don't know, though. Very interesting. I think that that's a great, I don't know the answer to it, but I'm going to guess that it's probably a no. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. And then you could save your taxes. It's a great idea, by the way. The 1031 is great, but it's very difficult to execute. Let's see. Jeannie writes, we have good credit. Let's see. We have good credit, but high to debt to income because as we've been running an art studio for 30 years. Still working at 68. Studio overhead is high. I used a 0% credit card and home equity line of credit to finance business, but both turned into expensive pumpkins. HELOC, $176,000. Mortgage is $43,000, almost at the end. Managing home loan payments totaling, oh my God, about $3,400 a month. Let's see. What are we trying to do? All ideas greatly appreciated. So it's some credit card debt, some old loans. Plan to sell the house, which has appreciated, and use profit to pay off everything. But in the interim, should I consider a refi or a variable HELOC? No, sell the house. What do you mean, plan to? Sell that sucker. Don't do anything. I wouldn't incur any fees or any costs associated with a refi to pay any of this off, but I would sell the house. And don't be greedy. And don't dip into other things to pay off this debt. Sell the house and move on. Move on. Okay? Here's another home equity line of credit question. This one is from Michael. The question is, should I pay off my current home equity line of credit balance? The interest rate keeps going up. The benefit of the interest deduction on taxes is no longer applicable with the new tax code because this guy's limited state and local taxes. He's a New York guy. So he wants to know, oh my God, there's a whole page here. Mark, come on. He's 53 years old. He's got 5 kids. Home equity line of credit. The interest rate, okay, so the interest rate is 5.74%. There's 35 grand on this. So he's got a bunch of money. Sure, I mean, I wouldn't mind paying this off. He can use the cash in his CDs, a whole life policy, and an old brokerage account to pay this off. He can take a loan out of his 401k. And what I would say is this. I think that what I would do is immediately pay. I would cash in the whole life has $5,000 cash value. The Morgan Stanley brokerage account has $6,000. So there's $11,000 right there. So I would sell those and immediately pay that down. The emergency money in cash, I don't know if I'd get rid of that. I think what I would probably do, current credit card debt at 0%. Hang on one second here. Looks to me like this. I would take the whole life and the Morgan Stanley account, and I think that I would probably pay down not so much the home equity loan. I'm a little bit nervous about the $13,000 in credit card debt that's due in the fall. So I think that what I would probably do is, what are you going to do with that part of it? Are you going to have money for that? I don't think I would pay. I don't know. I'm worried about that. I wouldn't use your emergency reserves. You can use the Mass Mutual and the Morgan Stanley brokerage account. Why don't you do this? Use those two and pay off a third of your home equity line of credit balance. But you got to save more money to be able to pay for the $13,000 credit card debt that's coming due in September. I would not actually I wouldn't worry about paying off anything else at this point. When you pay off your car loan this spring, then you can use that money to beef up your emergency reserve fund so that you've got that money for the 0% payment that's going to probably pop to 20% in September. And no borrowing against your retirement. That's it. And I wouldn't do that. I just don't think that, I don't like 401k loans for that purpose. You're getting too close to needing that money. So you can pay part of it off, but be ready to pay off that credit card balance when it pops up, because that's going to absolutely increase, and you've got to be ready to pay for it. Okay? Good. All right. You're listening to Jill on Money, where we are delighted to hear from you whenever you get a chance. You can hop onto our website, JillOnMoney.com. When you're messing around there, maybe you want to go to the resource section. Are you interviewing financial advisors? We've got 10 questions to ask. All right. When we return, more of your questions, and we will be right back.
If you've missed any part of the show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back with Jill on Money, and if you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That is our email address. Our website is JillOnMoney.com, and there you can do lots of fun things. Let me tell you what you can do there. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, which is great. We kind of cull some stuff that we do during the week and others as well. You can buy the book, which is fun for me because I just want as many people as possible to buy the book because it's fun. And you can get that book by going to JillOnMoney.com, clicking on the book link. And there, Mark just broke a microphone. Crazy. You can buy The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. You can also subscribe to our podcast. You can do it on our website at JillOnMoney.com, but you can get that at Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. Okay. You can also hit the Contact Us button, and then we will just, poof, automatically get your question. Brad writes that he loves the podcast. He and his wife are 65 years old and retired. They've got everything in the Vanguard family. Taxable account, they've got $200,000 in the total stock market index and $200,000 in the Wellington fund, which is more of a blended fund, and it tends to have more income-producing stuff. And look at this. Last year, Wellington generated more income, $10,000 in capital gains and better dividends. We also have $1.4 million in 8 CDs. That's starting to produce some significant and decent income. $2.1, almost $2.2 million in retirement accounts, a 60-40 allocation. In an effort to increase our income from our taxable accounts, we don't plan on using our retirement accounts until we have to draw those required minimum distributions. I'm thinking I should go all in with the Wellington and maybe increase it by another $100,000 to get to an even $500,000, and then take all the income it generates. What do you think? Okay. I think this is actually the opposite of what you may want to consider doing, because aren't you going to take a big old capital gain if you sell some of the shares in the total stock market index? You really want to do that? I don't know if that's worth it. And also, you're generating more taxable income in this. I mean, do you need to do this? I don't know. Are you living on these dividends? I guess I don't know what's going on. Between the CDs and just the income from the Wellington itself, and maybe, I don't know if you have taking social, do you need more income? That's the question. Because if you put more into the Wellington fund, you might pay a capital gains on the total stock market index, and then you got to pay tax on the actual dividends that Wellington does create. Whereas if you actually started generating income in the other accounts that are retirement accounts, you wouldn't have to pay tax on it. So I don't know. I guess what I'm just wondering is, do you really need the extra income or not? And is it worth it to pay those capital gains on the money that's in the total stock market index? I'm not sure it is. But I'm willing to entertain something different. Okay, Michelle says she received my escrow papers for my taxes, and private mortgage insurance was listed every month. Yet I paid off my house in July. Why was I charged every month for this? Probably because there was something slipped through the cracks, and the private mortgage insurer was not notified that the house was paid off, and now you have to go back and chase this down. It's one of the reasons I really do hate PMI. Even if you have PMI, you would think that, automatically that the company holding it would know when I had 20% equity and I could drop the PMI, the private mortgage insurance. The answer is that doesn't happen automatically. So you have to take responsibility for that. So now, Michelle, you're going to have to go back, show them when you paid it off, and see if you can get the money credited back to you. What a drag. Oh. Did you see that story, by the way, that FHA, which had lowered its standards in 2016, is now raising them back up? Oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't just give money to anyone who, has a heartbeat again. Let's not do that again. Okay. Here's a message from Roslyn, who heard that she may not need her current investment advisor to invest her money and charge me a fee. Can I invest a different way without fees? Oh, boy, can you, Roslyn? You can invest yourself. So you could say, hey, I'm going to just buy some index funds. Or you could use one of these online platforms. And that would, again, it's online. It's not a human being necessarily. You can probably talk to someone on the phone, like Betterment or Vanguard or Wealthfront. And depending on how much money you have, you're going to get a much lower fee. So maybe instead of paying a big investment advisory firm like 1 or 1.5% to manage your money, you might be able to do it online and pay as low as 0.25%. Well, that's pretty good. That's better than, and whatever money you save in fees, of course, it just drops down to your own bottom line. So you can imagine that's a pretty good deal. However, if you are getting ongoing investment advisory and financial planning, the financial planning part, that's the part that you may be interested in. Okay? So be clear that, what you're paying and what is being delivered for that fee that you're paying. Because it may be worth it to stick around with somebody who's charging a big fee if you're getting a lot of the other services that are important to you. But if it's simple investment allocation and management, boy, these robos are great. And if you really wanted to save the most money, you would do it yourself. You'd use a low-cost number of index funds, probably cost you 0.1% on an annualized basis. About. If you got more questions like that, I'd love to hear from you. Love how to reduce fees. It's Jill on Money, and if you've got a question, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com, or go to the website, jillonmoney.com, click on the Contact Us button, and we will get to your question as quickly as we possibly can. Okay, we'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. April showers, baby. We're using any showers to essentially plow through emails. Mark, I thought that we were going to end the all email bonanza by the end of March, but we can't get through it. So we're going to try to let's try to do this through April, and then we'll start bringing some guests back. And Mark's not so sure. Jeffrey writes that after he calculated his 2017 taxes and his 2018 taxes, he says, look, there's no fuss about losing most of the SALT deduction. Well, bully for you, okay? Because that's great in your situation. The other changes in the tax code more than compensated for your loss of SALT taxes. I myself, not so lucky. Many in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California, not so lucky. Glad you didn't have to worry about it. But for a lot of people, the SALT deduction was a big deal. Okay. Question from Chad, who's currently 3 house payments late. He wants to know, how does he prevent foreclosure? He can't come up with all the money. And so the options are, you've got to call the lender. Whenever you owe a bunch of money to somebody, the best thing to do is to contact the lender. If you do so, you've got a shot. If you don't, you're screwed, basically. You can't just go it and be blind. All right? Ellen's financial advisor recommends she looks into a reverse mortgage. She says, I don't need it now, but getting it in place today could provide a line of credit. What do you think? I need more details, Ellen. Presuming that you are, over the age of 62, I guess it's a possibility. And presuming that your mortgage, that your advisor has your best interest at heart, sounds like an interesting idea. But that said, I can't really comment. I don't know about your situation. Tim wants to know whether you include the current value of future pension benefits that you have earned in net worth calculations. What are you doing this for? Is this? It depends. If it's like a net worth for a bank, you ask them. I guess you could. I don't know. What do you think, Mark? Yeah, I guess you could, but does it matter? Or you just want to make sure you add up to a lot of money? Use it when you do your retirement calculations, whether it's your net worth or not, I don't know. Okay, Janice says that her daughter bought her first home 2 years ago. She took out a 30-year loan at 4.85% interest. The balance is right now $136,000. She makes $62,000 a year. She contributes to a pension, a state pension. She's not eligible for Social Security because of that pension amount. And she's 27. She's got only $2,000 in emergency reserve fund. No other debt. She owns her car. Question: should she make extra payments toward the loan, trying to get it down to a 10 or 15-year loan, or invest in a 401k or 457 plan? We believe she should make an extra payment. Who's we, Kimosabi? Okay. So, by the way, one little extra thing here. Due to the change in the tax law, the standard deduction of $12,000 is more than her deductions if she were to itemize. So she doesn't have any mortgage debt benefit for tax purposes. So this is tough because, 4.85% interest is not an insignificant interest rate. So what I would say is this. Number one, I would first start by beefing up the emergency reserve fund. I just think that 2,000's light. So whatever her expenses are, 3 to 6 months in that emergency reserve fund. Now, for the extra $500, it's hard. That's a tough one for me. She's got a pension, so I guess it wouldn't be so horrible to pay down some of that mortgage, but she's got to have a little extra money in that emergency reserve. Would she be able to get a Roth 401k option? That's a question. If so, I might do that instead of paying down the mortgage. But it's not a bad question. It's a little bit of a flip of the coin on this one. So definitely build up that emergency reserve fund. If she had a Roth 401k, I might choose that. Otherwise, I think, she can then start paying the mortgage down a bit. Kay writes that she wants to retire in a couple of years. She will soon be 67. When she retires, what should she do with the funds in her 401k? Well, the answer to that is that there are usually three big choices, Kay. One is you leave the money where it is. Two is you roll it over into some sort of different plan. But if you're going to retire, there's no other plan. So third is you move it into an IRA rollover account. Those are your three options, two of which are really the ones that are most pertinent to you. You can roll over that old 401k to any investment firm, like any no-load index fund type of environment, at Vanguard, at T. Rowe Price. You can go to a Charles Schwab or a Vanguard. All of those are good options. If you need some help with that, give us a holler. We'd be happy to help you out. And if you all have questions about where to roll over and what to do with your old retirement money, give us a holler. Email us, askjill@jillonmoney.com. Hey, we're headed to a break. During that break, go to jillonmoney.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter and you can buy the book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius Studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. So check it out. Before we go, let's get one more question in. If you have a question, don't worry if we're not on the air. You can send us a note throughout the week. The email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Terry writes that when he has sold a home in the past, he writes, my wife and I use the profits on the sale as down payments on our next home. So in another year or two, we will be selling our home. We are relocating for retirement, but we prefer to rent at the next location until we are sure of where we want to finally retire. That's a great idea. You know, it's one of my chapters in the book. You buy a home when you should rent. This is a great case, perfect case for renting, by the way. Okay, so Terry continues. We would like to use the rental time before making our final decision. So here's the question. If we are able to clear $250,000 from the home sale, where would you suggest investing the money for a couple of years before it is used to secure another home purchase? I really enjoy listening to your radio show in Louisville every week on WHAS, I might add. I wish you continued success, Terry. So, Terry, the problem that you now are presenting is a time horizon question. And it is very difficult to invest for a couple of years. So what I would be more inclined to do, if I were you, is I don't really know whether it's 1 year or 3 years, but let's split the difference. Let's presume that it is 2 years. That in that case, I think what we would do is go to check out depositaccounts.com. Great website, consolidates lots of different options. You click on a link for CDs and you look at the best 2-year CD rates, which are like 2.8, 2.75%, and pop that money in there. Don't mess around with it. All right? Good luck. Hey, it has been great, and thank you so much for listening. If you would like, you can hop onto our website, jillonmoney.com. You can listen to old shows, you can read columns, you can watch TV segments, and you can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Thanks so much for tuning in with us and spending some time. We'll check in with you next week. Have a good one.